好，女士们、先生们，各位贵宾。
So, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, welcome to Tencent Media and WEF's co-organized forum on AI. Thank you for your presence. Welcome. As we know, regarding AI, there are numerous forums on this topic. Every moment you hear this kind of keyword and progress being made. And in the video, for example, you saw different scenarios and imaginations. And so this is really a hot topic nowadays. But this is our reality. Many people say that we are faced with the so-called 4.0 industrial revolution, which could be the biggest, largest industrial revolution, and it changed our pace due to AI. It's a kind of a disruption, and we are going upward so drastically. And what we'll be faced with, we are discussing, and this kind of forum will continue, I believe, every moment. Even when we are holding this forum in certain places in the world, there is breakthroughs in the technology of AI, and some major changes are being made. And in different moments, we are holding this kind of forum. We have to update our knowledge, and we have to update our imagination even. And we have some experts, entrepreneurs, and scientists here today with us. So they will be talking about their understanding regarding AI and the prospect and the challenges and opportunities, of course. And they will describe for us what kind of a future world we'll be faced with. Different people are telling us that the future world will be totally different from today's world. So I'm fortunate to have these panelists with me today. Firstly, we have Professor Joanna Bryson from Bath University of the UK and the Computer Science Department. And next one is the president and CEO of Splunk company, Doug Merritt. Thirdly is Mr. Liu Jinren, representing the NeoSoft China, and also Mr. Zhou Kui from Square Foundation Capital, and we also. So welcome you all. And what kind of, we also have the Kersti Kaljulaid, president of Estonia. And faced with AI, and especially in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be faced with different important milestones and important nodes. And at this moment, what kind of moment we are in? Could you describe for us? Certainly, you have your specialty fields. And my first question is to Mr. Liu Jiren. You are the first generation of doctor in computer science, and you represent NeoSoft, a computer science company. So you are one of the earliest who was in touch with AI. And from your first-hand experience, what kind of stage we are in now? Also, what will be the next few years? By looking at the technology, by looking at the past decades, we really set up a digitalized world. We laid a foundation and infrastructure and the platforms. Number one, the computing costs is being driven down. Once it was very costly, now computing costs and storage has become cheaper and cheaper. Telecommunication has become cheaper. And this kind of cheapers are still in a continuum. And also digital equipment or device has become everyone's device put together. We got to see. This world connectivity has become faster, convenient, and cheaper. And therefore, on the basis of this, we see more the multiple applications which made today's world different. We see e-commerce, e-learning. We got to see different kinds of social media platforms and the connection between people and objects. And so real time, cheaper and cheaper, actually. And this has led to this led to some major breakthroughs, like in AI. When I was a university student, I read about AI and also virtual reality, and we see upheavals, ups and downs. But why AI has not been turned into a reality? Because we did not have a foundation or infrastructure in place. However, nowadays nowadays we can do computing to do weather prediction forecast and in an instant. But once it took days to predict the weather, and the storage also has become cheaper and cheaper. Another major change is the extraction of data has become more proactive and cheaper as well. And once when you want to get data, you have to purchase the data. But now you have free data. People are contributing data, even about their privacy, their track record and behavior, their lifestyle. They're contributing all these. And in a digital society, and you have more accuracy in identifying different individuals, their behavior. All these changes in discussing AI, the foundation is totally different today than yesterday. And once we talked about what kind of algorithm, and once we thought the algorithm was not speed enough, but the speed is not a problem. And once you did not have enough preconditions like data information, but you got sufficient data information, and so this is unprecedented. And what is AI, and what kind of legal status should it have, and ethical issues surrounding AI. This is something we never experienced before. And so because these data has given us a totally new world. Now, worldwide, we see more and more population living in another space, and their commercial behavior, governance, and it's totally different from yesterday because of the differences. So they turned into economies, they turned into cultures, they turned into some major challenges and issues we are to discuss. Talking about the next 5 to 10 years, what will be the biggest major change? We will see, not to talk about more laws, accumulation, cheaper and better, faster. Certainly, this is something we will see. But in the next 10 years, after 10 years, our understanding about the whole world will be more accurate. And the relationship between different objects, we will have a clearer picture and put together. And if we come up with a new algorithm, then regarding every sector today, we'll be talking about internet and people and their connection with people. Now, all these sectors, technology has become a disruptor or promoter of the internet. So in the next 10 years, we will get to see something we never got to see 20 years in the past 20 years, 30 years. It will come faster and faster because of digitalization and better accuracy and more business models, new business models as well. China, for example, on this kind of platforms, more and more Chinese companies are coming into being, and their productivity is being enhanced. And entrepreneurs of startups, they are becoming younger and younger. They accumulate wealth more quickly, and this is something we never experienced. Especially those who did not have any capital, only got a brain power, and they could have a startup. And this is something we will get to see in the next 20 years. 10 years, digital startups to accumulate wealth and to come up with new business models. I call it a new normal. Now, I have a question for Joanna. You started in the 80s. You got involved in AI, computers.
What kind of?
Sorry, he was translating for a while.
Sorry. I mean, you have started your research concerning to computer and AI since 80s.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a long time.
Yeah.
So I really want to know your feeling about those biggest change compared to those times, and what is the most exciting thing lying ahead?
Oh, well, okay. Let's see. So I think the biggest change is not because of artificial intelligence itself. It's not the algorithms, but it has been, as everybody says, the expanding of the computers, the expanding of the internet. And then, of course, since 2007, the expanding of the personal data. So it hasn't been the details of AI that's changed. But in the last 2 or 3 years, what's been changing radically is the governance. It went from being toys to changing the world. And we've seen it change in democracies, that there's been a challenge to democracy. And so now people pay attention. Also, there's the change on both sides of the Great Firewall. There has been a change of the tech companies becoming more powerful than petrochemical and then manufacturing. So that's a big change. There's a big change in power structures. So I think it isn't, and I loved your video, but I don't entirely agree with it. It's not that artificial intelligence is a bunch of people. There was a focus on these robots. Artificial intelligence is a means by which humans get control and information over their world, including each other. And so I think the biggest challenges going forward that we're spending a lot of time on is how do we handle the problems of accountability? I agree. I actually don't think we need a lot of new laws. I think what we need is to help people to enforce the old laws and to hold accountable companies that were not doing the correct things with respect to being careful. So some companies, for example, Facebook, became very powerful, maybe even not entirely intentionally, and then they weren't following the best business practice. And if the courts find them incorrect, then they should be held accountable. So I think that we're making companies are incredibly powerful. They're very rich. They're transnational. We need to figure out new ways to negotiate with that. I don't think that was really the question you asked me, so just to say that technology, and before this session, I had thought this, when I first heard someone say, I would be most excited if we could do live translation and everyone everywhere talks in their own language, like we have here, but we use people.
That will.
Yeah. I keep expecting at one of these meetings, we're all going to have these headphones, and it's going to be, and it won't be as good as the people. But
we can put something here.
Well, no, because it is still, we won't get the idioms, we won't understand all the pieces. It's still worth learning another language, but it will be like Google Translate online. At least we could get the words and kind of guess if we know enough about the culture. So I would love to have everybody speak in their native language all the time. That would be great.
We're looking forward to it. OK， 好，想问问周奎先生哈，著名。
I want to ask you, Mr. Zhou Kui, very famous startup company founder, and also the investors. Would you please to share with me your view? What are the fundamental or the most important change we are experiencing? And in your vision in the future, of course, you will select some major changes have great impact on the companies, on the industries. Well, we are in the process of informatization. Technology is a big step of humanity's civilization. And everything could be digitalized. We could stay connected. We can pull things together for algorithm and computation. And a lot of things are enabled. The symbol of the civilization is saved at cloud. Yesterday, in Shanghai, we invited Amazon, Tencent, Google. We said that the people wisdom could be calculated and computed and saved at cloud. Such kind of wisdom, in China, we say that elderly citizens are most wise people. But the cloud stay young forever. And the brain of the cloud is expanding and exceeding the individual capacity of a single brain. AlphaGo is one of the milestones, and the chess is so difficult, and I believe it will have a lot of challenge to people. We need to get used to many changes. The top wisdom in the society could be accessed by everyone at cloud. Maybe it's not today. We already see such a progress. Maybe some your personal life and your career choice, your personal choice, your career choice need to get adaptive to such a change. I believe these are the changes we are having now. And we can form such a structure. We may have a very, very super social brain in the cloud, which is able to support everyone. Well, I think that individual person can already get tech wisdom, which means that the mobile phones, you can do it on your mobile phone, which cannot be imagined in the past. I'm able to see my location, the accurate location, which was you cannot imagine 20 years ago. I believe this is what we have nowadays, and in the wisdom of the informatization is growing quickly. People believe that the connectivity is growing quickly. It's also the accumulated wisdom are also growing. Well, within your own vision, which industry or sector will enjoy the fastest growth? I think the industry is still in difficulties. Whenever we talk about the technological revolution, we often say it was the change of mobility. We know that the mobility is one of the highest cost of human lives, and the mobility, transportation, the autonomous driving. 5 years ago, I thought it was not difficult. Nowadays I think it's much less time. We already have some license for the autonomous driving. Maybe in the next 5 years, I could even use a autonomous driving vehicles, and you can try it. You can use it in the next 5 years or less in some regional range. Transportation or mobility is one of topic of people's life, and which is usually cost some money. Healthcare. It's difficult to educate a student to become a doctor, and the doctor has to receive education in the past 8 to 9 years before he is qualified as doctor. But such a medical information and knowledge could be accumulated and used by the machines. When this brain or the machine brain is able to help you, that we can have faster training of the doctors when providing treatment to the patients, and they are more accurate, and they will have less mistakes made. But this is a rising part. It's just started. The other industry or sectors, take security as an example. That we have vulnerabilities, and the machine brain has less vulnerabilities. it is able to identify everything in its memory. Why not I use it to serve for the security purpose? Of course, it brings new problems and challenges. The other things, for example, China is a large manufacturing country. Why? Because China has a large population base. And I used to work within a plant. There are so many assembly line and testing line. In assembly line, you can do the assembly by the machines, but to test, we have visual inspection. At the plant, humans are slower than the machines in the visual inspection. Not only the speed, but also the quality. For example, the Apple mobile phone, and it is not, the job is not done by people. It must be done by the machines. There are a lot of sectors and industries, and we will see penetration of such a technology. Anyway, the companies will be driven partially by AI. People say that AI is not a special industry, but it will go into any kind of industry. I know that Mr. Xiao, you are, and I know that you are one of the pioneer in AI in combination with internet. Mr. Zhou talked about security. Probably you have more things to say on that. In terms of finance or other sectors, what do you think are some surprising changes you want to tell us? In the past several years, we do see radical changes in the world every day. People feel depression in fear of the possible changes or replacement by AI. You know that Chinese people are very smart and work diligently, and we develop practical science and technology. The application of AI in China at present, which we see very clearly, which can create most value within the commercial use, is the advertisement algorithm, the advertisement push up. The other thing is that in the new finance, it already creates new value. We do see the profit driven by AI. And autonomous driving, which is still under experiment, which is not ready, but in finance, we already have it. In terms of finance, and there is a concept, you know that in China, which is the earliest industry which is digitalized. That is the bank or informatization. In the past, we had large machines, large computers. In financial sector, they have a very good storage of data. But how to use the data, how to apply data within the financial sector, which was not discussed in the past. China's population, 1.4 billion. Population, you know, the supply and demand is not in right balance, especially when providing financial service to the individual in China. The integrity system in China is not quite sound, different from US, which has a lot of factual data. There is a inadequate of integrity or the credit rating data of that in China. Once AI penetrated into finance, can create a lot of value. The first one is in terms of anti-fraud and the background check. And the result of using AI in financial industry can drive down your cost, which means bring money to you. The other thing in the small loan operation, you know that usually in traditional industry, why they do not want to get into the, they do not want to serve the individual because they have a lot of cost, and they have a lot of cost of application for claiming back the loan, and all of this could be addressed by the AI solution. In the past years, we followed closely with the technology, how to implement the technology. It is true that from the customer acquisition and how to pick the right customer, for example, what we can offer to them financially. And also we use some AI recommendation algorithm to our customers. The other thing is before the approval, before the loan and anti-fraud. we talked so much about the data generated at the terminals, which can help us to identify some small risks of fraud. I still remember several years ago, we find out one case of fraud. And in the past, we can only identify the fraud by hundreds of thousands of examples. But now, some small possibility of fraud could be detected by several cases because the machines have self-learning, checking the orders and the location of the transactions, which can greatly prevent risk. And in our approval, 90% of them are automatic without human interference. Post-loan management within our system, and our organization is not very large, maybe tens of a billion asset under our management. What's the quality of the asset? The asset from last month, how much percentage is good? How much of them were not working? You know that there are 6,000 variables. There are so many variables, how to make the analysis by the people. We have machine learned automatically. They can identify the NPL. We are able to optimize the models so that in the post-loan management, we can accurately identify the risk to make our AUM in a healthy way. The other thing is the claiming back of the loan. And we also use the AI technology, and we can lower our cost, and we can make our financial service more inclusive within the industry. Therefore, in financial sector, AI has one single application, but already a good symbol showing that the whole industry chain already received the benefits. I believe that in the coming days, with a more practical application of AI, we will see efficiency growth in the society. The service received by us will have lower cost. You have two products. One is called Eagle Eye, which is very interesting.
Another expert at data, right? Your company is very popular now. It's analyzing and collecting data and help other companies to make better choice, the smart choice, right?
Correct.
So what's your opinion of your perspective of what kind of moment we're in, and what is the biggest change lying ahead?
So I think, like all the other panelists said, we're in the very early days right now of what's possible. As much excitement as there is around digital transformation and IoT, the number of processes that truly are censored end to end and the ability to collect that data is still really early and nascent. When I look forward, I think for all of us to have a healthy society, there's always going to be risks and benefits to any new technology. With every progress comes risks and benefits, and AI and machine learning have got that same edge of good and bad. But part of the benefit should be, how do we expose as many people to be able to participate in the wave that's coming? And what we see with the many organizations we're working with is there's three core aspects that I think will help a broader base benefit. The first is open access to data. We've been all been talking about data on the panel, and I view data as the oxygen for machine learning or for AI. It's the backbone, it's the fuel, it's the capability that we will all need to continue to progress our overall attempts at machine learning and artificial intelligence. And right now, there's a lot of data becoming available as everything becomes censored, but I think we have to strike a healthy balance between anonymity of data and protecting rights and still making data available so we can see the gains in healthcare, in retail, and financial services that are possible if we really have access to massive broad base of non-structured and structured data. I think hand in hand with that access is the trustworthiness of data. We all hear reports of manipulation that's now possible in many different fronts. How do you, and not just data, but then obviously the algorithms that operate on the data, given that there's a very tight virtuous circle between application of different algorithms and the data sets that you're manipulating. How do you get visibility and trust on the lineage of data Now, obviously, blockchain and distributed ledger can be one of those aspects, but it goes through many stages, is touched many times, and if you can't trust the foundation of the element that you're working with, or you don't know where it's been and how it's been enhanced in some way, I think that starts to minimize, again, the potential for societal gain, but also could take AI in tracks that we wouldn't always understand with that transparency. And then the third piece that I think is absolutely critical that lots of people have been talking about is how do we lower the bar and capability set so that more people can participate? So we can democratize data, democratize machine learning, so that the average citizen that's not a data scientist, that may not have been trained in very deep computing capability can still benefit. And I think we're seeing a lot of tooling, if we can get access open and we can get trustworthy and transparency high, I think we're seeing a lot of tooling be birthed that is able to both represent algorithms and data sets in ways that our story processing brain, which is not a logic processing brain, through evolution, in ways that our story processing brain can actually attach to. And if we do it properly, I think the ingredient that humans can continue to rely on is curiosity. And where general purpose AI still has a long way to go is that non sequitur linking of different patterns and the curiosity to really investigate and interrogate those patterns. So with open access, trustworthiness, training, enhanced curiosity, and accessibility of that data, then I think there'll be continued movement overall for this fourth industrial revolution, but ideally in more positive ways than negative ways as we get collective participation and the benefits that can come with that.
The positive things and negative things, we're going to face it together.
We have no choice.
We have no choice. Yeah, 到刚才说，其实从 data 的这个 use。
So from the data use perspective, we are still in the early stage. I read a report which says that according to maturity curve of AI, 86% of the AI technology has not got into maturity. Even by 2022, even 40% would not be mature, get into mainstream market, but 85% of the technology will bring transformational opportunities for different sectors and bring lots of value. So we are still on the way. And I have a question for Mr. Liu Jiren. And regarding the sectoral changes, once we call it, it's like oxygen. Data is like oxygen, and algorithm we have, and put together there will be a new engine, and to upgrade different industries, different sectors, but for some sectors, this could be disruptions. So my question for you is, by looking at the changes to different industries, to societies, what kind of forecast prediction you have? I think these changes will be huge. Let me take healthcare as example. Healthcare or medicine in any country in the past decades or even 100 years of history, we intended to give our people better health care, better welfare, but no country has been able to hold up the burden to because our payers and service providers are separated, are severed, and the patients and medical service providers are separated, and we lack transparency. We cannot ask a doctor, why you give me this injection? Why did you prescribe this medicine? And also in different cities, we also see a disparity in healthcare, in medicine. And therefore, the conclusion is that we will see continued increase in the healthcare burden in different countries. But they are related to how to optimize our medical care system. Firstly, we see lots of separations, not very good connectivity because we have no good handle on data. And anyone in any city, you would not be able to get to know which hospital is the right one for you, which one is the most affordable for you. You do not know. You just know which one is the best. So we always go to the best hospitals. But the best one doesn't mean that's the right hospital for you. They may not have the doctors to treat you, and they could be very costly. And in this kind of background, so AI in the future certainly will play its role in medical care. I think there are several folds of the roles to be played by AI. Firstly, we have different objectives, and that is how to beat the medical doctors, and that's but that's not our objective anymore. We want to turn the worst doctor into the best, and we do not want just AI to beat the best doctors. And if we can turn the worst doctors, turn them into best doctors only by 5%, they will give us more benefits to the society. Because most of us, 70 to 80% of us, our diseases are common ailments and chronic diseases or treatable diseases, curable diseases, but you do not get cured. You do not get the right diagnosis. It doesn't mean that by going to visit the best doctors, you would get treated or cured. That's not the picture today. And also in China, we have the regional disparities at the county level. Many medical doctors even do not hold a medical degree. And we have farmer-to-farmer treatment. We call it barefooted doctors in China. And so in medical care, AI, if we can turn the worst doctors into the best ones, if we can turn the best doctors into many more, how we can turn best doctors into many more? They can turn their methodology into algorithm. Their medical plan can be connected to other doctors, so the prescription can become best practices to go to most remote areas to treat people there. And I think this is something we needed to pay attention to, but we have a long way to go. And from China's perspective in medical care, firstly, our population, it's beyond their affordability, and because of the diagnosis has got a problem. It's not just the drugs are expensive. The most expensive part is the diagnosis. You got a wrong diagnosis, and then you were prescribed the wrong medicines. That makes your treatment very expensive. Secondly, your disease could be treated in a village at the county level, but you took a train to Beijing and to wait in Beijing for 2 months, 1 month, 2 months. And that made your medical care very expensive because there's a lack of trust to hospitals. You have to move to bigger cities to get treatment. Therefore, in medical care, if you do not go beyond medical care, if you just want to adopt some reform measures to ask the doctor to be cheaper, to ask hospital to be cheaper, you cannot solve the problem because our doctors are like artists. Doctors are artists. They're artists. So so you have an eye on a doctor. You just want to go to him, but we need artists. But we also need engineers of doctors, and engineers can deal with the most basic problems, and the payment can also make some changes through AI. I think AI can play the biggest role, and there's the biggest possibility for AI to play a role in medical care. And for the society, we can feel the benefits very easily if AI is deployed in medical care. So, Mr. Zhou, talking about the economic structure changes, what kind of disruptions we will witness in the near future? And Mr. Liu talking about medical care. So which sector would be transformed thoroughly by AI? I quite agree with what Mr. Liu said. It's about inclusiveness. I mentioned AI is to be used by all of us. And other sectors also have this kind of features. So, for example, medical doctors, teachers, education. I think that would be a big sector for AI. Between teachers and the students, they may give students assignments just like doctors, but we require skills on the part of professors. But the communication is one-on-one on a small scale. And AI, regarding knowledge per se, regarding the teaching of knowledge. For example, my personal experience is one teacher teaching dozens of us, and 90% of my homework were correct and 10 were mistaken. But I spent a lot of time on the correct ones, correct items, and. But we put the students into batchments. We can ensure the most basic quality, and but in the future, we will have a tailor-made teaching education. They won't be luxury as well, and tailor-made won't be just for luxuries. And teaching as a process, in the teaching process, you will face with different kinds of mishaps, unexpected events. But a machine can do management on the mishaps. And after they discover the mishaps, the people will step in. And when machines got involved, when there are mishaps, they send off a signal, and the human beings will step in, and this can happen in many sectors. And AI can discover mishaps in teaching process. For the kid started to cry, and then the machine will send out a signal, and teacher will come over, human teacher will come over to intervene. And so this kind of thing will happen in many sectors. So I call it major changes. So Joanna?
Economy, industry, or social order, social structure?
Oh, wow. Thank you for that question. That's one of my favorite questions right now. I think this is really a huge issue. And I want to say, in the first place, I don't want to make an open prediction, because what we do matters. And that's why I travel. I think it really matters that we get engaged and we use our brains and we try to build a better future. But specifically, I almost want to take the question back to Professor Liu. When you say make the worst doctors the best doctors, that sounds great. I get really excited. That's why I got into AI. But then, because I've been learning about economics, I know that means everyone can be a doctor. Does that mean a doctor is no longer a prestigious position? So one of the things that we're worried about is artificial intelligence affecting inequality? And I know that this question is very different in a traditional capitalist versus a traditional communist society, but it seems that social coherence comes from the ability of people to move between jobs and to have trust, so that there isn't just an upper echelon and a lower echelon totally separate from each other. We want a continuum. So, and I'm not saying, this is not a challenge, it's a question. I sincerely wonder what all the consequences are, although I'm working for them too. But this is it's a big, big issue.
Yeah.
The second part of it is, I mentioned before, the transnational question. When there is one big winner, and again, China is famously the exception. That's why I mentioned the firewall, that they have been able to create and ring fence a tech sector here separately has been really interesting. But in general, it tends, for the rest of us outside of China, we have all the big companies in one country, and they're getting a lot of wealth. And even in China, a lot of wealth is going to these same, the mirror companies, right? Like Tencent. So how you handle that in your economy is a big question, especially within one country, the government can work, but outside, when it's multiple countries, then there's that, who is the government then? How do you agree how to deal with that wealth? And then finally, there was another piece I wanted to say of the economic, social consequence. Finally, the AI itself, and there's been a little mention of this, it shouldn't be the thing that has responsibility. So again, this goes back to the person thing. But people talk about making AI a legal person so that the driverless car, for example, has its own liabilities. It's a convenient thing. There's called a legal person, like a company. And so when Professor Liu said there was no precedent, some people say companies are the precedent, that they're a form of AI. But when a company is not, when the people who own the company don't really care what happens to it, this is called a shell company. And when we have shell companies, then we have corruption. And I was very excited by what you said about looking for fraud. So you can create fraud. You can, say, build a building deliberately so that it goes bankrupt so that you hide money, right, circulation. The reason that can happen is that no human, so justice works by applying, for example, jail or a loss of face to a human. The machine doesn't care. And we cannot make the machine care in a way that we can't unmake because we build the machine. It's not like a person. So with us, we are built, even fish are built to care what the society thinks. So we care. So we have to maintain the legal personhood with humans. And if anything, we've overextended it already. That's why we have these shell companies. So I think that's a very essential part to the economic and social order.
我觉得这个有意思的就是说我
This is very interesting, and we do see some many exciting changes and a series of consequences. And they rise and go down together. And that's why it's highly significant to discuss them. We need to get prepared for welcome these changes. I want to ask Mr. Xiao. And Joanna have talked so many things. And I cannot elaborate all of them. And these are great problems. And Mr. Liu, you talked about the doctor's issue. And maybe in the future, the banks don't need people. People often talk about employment structures. And it is a trend that's and how could people become AI-driven people? Companies could become AI-driven companies, and people might be phased out by AI. And how to help them to find new places? And 70% of the jobs will disappear. Of course, the data are different. And so, what is your view on this? This is one of the trend. People. You have the worries too early, and even the replacement takes place. It takes time, and many historically jobs were disappearing, but new jobs showing up. In the past, we had no programmer, we have no product managers, and when we are facing to the job to this problem, and the change will not be that sudden. Even though the society is in fast changing, but it is still a slow penetration. And that the people are the species most or highly adaptive to the world in the earth. In the long term and the middle term, we don't need so much a repetitive labor or the manual work. And very likely, we are going to have a more creative or innovative people. There's so much a population. Maybe people can take off, can have holidays one after another, and we take turns to go on holidays. And what do we need? And if there is a AI help us to have our daily life in good order, and like our food, accommodation, I believe AI makes people happier. And so we are free of the troubles and repetitive work. We can be with our families. We can develop our interest. We don't need to invest our time and resources to do some mechanical or repetitive work, routine work like cleanup and cooking. And I think that we can do more things and interesting things and to change this world. And what kind of people? And from now on, you can't expect what kind of technology you want and what do we need to save. And so that you can get prepared for the future. Well, what we need to have, or what kind of things we need to learn, and you need to follow your own interest to get adaptive to the social changes. And it's not that you do some repetitive work, and it is true, it's very likely you will be replaced by machines, and you need to show respect to the future, and you can try something unknown and challenge the future and change yourself to get adaptive and prepared.
Provide data to company and then help them make the smart choice decision. Do we still need entrepreneur? Maybe you can tell the data will tell them how to do that.
Data is not intelligence. Data is data. So there's still going back to the earlier comments on, we are not always as creative as we could be. In the 1800s, if you told a farmer, the world is going to go 90% non-agriculture, and there's machines that will do everything that you do today, but somehow we're going to still have global unemployment under 10%. I think very few people would have rushed forward and said, "Fantastic! I can't wait to imagine what those jobs are." So we do find a way to adapt, but it's always scary. Socioeconomic changes are not smoothly taken up. And what can we do this time to get in front of it? What can we do on skill development and rapid retraining? Because we will lose jobs. Those repetitive jobs that the Industrial Revolution created will likely go away. And we need to help our population become, we need the right frameworks and the right delivery so that people can quickly get into new areas that they wouldn't have imagined before. But I think from a society perspective, we have to shift resources to that. I don't think that 10 years ago we would have imagined that there would be billions of applications on the iTunes and Android stores that people are making some economic living from, but that still required people to understand computing and programming. And data is really just, again, the oxygen for that. So I'll go back to my core point on how do we make data as accessible as possible. And I'll ground it with an example. There's a group called the Global Emancipation Network that's working on a difficult problem, human trafficking globally. It would have been impossible to have solved 15 to 20 years, I think for a number of reasons, one of which is data was not very open 15 to 20 years ago. And it's largely unstructured data. But if you can tap into the hundreds or thousands of sources across travel industry, retail industry, different local agencies, police agencies and others, patterns can emerge very quickly that show who the victims might be and who the perpetrators might be, so you can actually be proactive in trying to solve this very difficult problem. That only happens with broad access to data. And again, we've got to balance the anonymity needs with that access to data. But I think if we look at the past and we're willing to lean forward, AI and ML is coming. How do we participate in it? Then let's focus back on what do we have to do to make sure that the broadest number of people can benefit through open data, through transparency and trustworthiness, and through the skilling necessary so that people can get rapidly retrained and we don't have the divide that I think is causing a lot of negative ramifications around the globe today as people get nervous and try and do what we can never do, which is try and go backward. You can never go backward. You can't even stand still, right? The world is moving, so how do you move with that world, given that it's continuously evolving?
We have no choice.
We have no choice.
刘先生，您觉得如果
Mr. You know that, Mr. Liu, what do you think? What should you teach to your kids? What will still be used in the next 30 to 40 years? What are the skills and the capabilities we need to grasp? I think anything, emotional exchanges, I believe such kind of major or skills are highly secured. For example, interview, right? Like this dialogue. Interview dialogue, maybe not, you think? It's also replaced because the moderators, if highly logic and highly computed, that you can be replaced by the algorithm. And in the future, that technology in the future can have a very similar expression like people and only very deep emotion. And you can have different feeling when you talk to him or talk to this person. For example, if you want to make friends, you can make it's difficult to make friends with machine because the feeling, it takes a long time. It's not that you can't make friends with a machine. If you look at these movies and the films, and the people can also feel in love with the robots sometimes. So in nature, at emotional level, the computation is based on logics. The other view I fully support is like this. In fact, when a portion of jobs disappear, of course, new jobs are created. In the past, we don't have so many data analysts. We didn't have so many people working as programmers. And in the future, on the platform of AI, and we will call it data democracy, AI democracy. What does it mean? Any kind of industry may use it. Any skills may use it, which is available in any companies. In the past, we are a manufacturer. We had loads of workers. In the future, we will have a lot of designers, engineers, data analysts. They will become a new professions. To me, you need to think about yourself. Do not think about the world. You don't need to worry about the world. You worry about self. You lose a job. It's not the world is changing. It's because of you. You didn't get prepared for the changes. So I hope next year I will still be here, will not be replaced. Still have 2 to 3 minutes. And this is a very, very big question. There's so many dimensions of it, and we can only touch the surface of it. We already have some inspiring idea of you. Would you please use some words what we should get prepared quickly? Mr. Liu said, you prepare yourself. And what is most thing? What makes you worry most? What kind of things you need to get prepared? You need to get prepared for yourself or for your society. Well, I want to mention one thing, that is education. Education is delayed. You know that the content of the education is delayed. What you learn today will be used in a long time, days. And I learned what I will be used in the next 10 or 20 years. But the textbook were made 10 or 20 years ago. So there is strong conflict there. I think education. In China, to a broader sense, we need to have a regulatory and a legal framework. Coin has two sides. You not only see the positive benefits, great changes in value to the society and the economy. The other side, once it is utilized by bad guys, it is something we should be fear of. I watched a movie. It was about a drone and UAV, which can be controlled to killing people. And you can't imagine that. We need to get prepared. And if abused in financial sector, is also scary.
I know.
Well, yeah, so quickly to answer the learning question, I would learn to learn. And I think it's still worth going to university. Not what specifically you learn, it will probably not be useful by the time you graduate, but to learn how to learn and to learn a group of people to make the contact. So university is more about connecting the networks. And I think this goes back to the most essential thing. I think we will build robots that will fool people into falling in love with them. But I think the people who will be the most safe and the most powerful are the ones who connect with other humans, because that is actually the core of society for the reasons I gave before.
Yeah.
So I guess I worry, Let me tell you one more story about the jobs. Okay.
We have only 30
Oh,
seconds
then I
left.
won't. I'll pass.
Sorry.
I bet you your story is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's probably better than mine.
We'll read your articles.
Because I'll repeat what you said. I think you're either growing or dying. So what can you do to be excited about change?
Yeah.
It's always a constant change.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing it increase because the evolutions in the digital world are not gated by DNA and genomes. The cycles are much faster. So I think curiosity, creativity, interpersonal relationships.
Learn how to learn.
But underneath that, it really,
Yeah.
we have to love change and embrace change.
Yeah.
And the more resistant we are, I think that's the easiest way to get eclipsed and fall backward.
Thank you. That's a very great conclusion. You're either growing or dying. 非常感谢各位嘉宾今天在这里给我们分享他们的观点，确实是。
Thank you very much for your sharing. And this is a big wave, regardless of your personal view. And the people say it's also a roller coaster. What should we do? That is to have your safety belt. And we need to follow with the big wave.
Being in the forum. Thank you.